Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to RimWorld Ye Olde Knights, episode 13. It is ever so good to see all your friendly faces joining me again at the House of Rat. Today's episode we begin with a bit of production in our workshop, as well as watching good old King George go and visit Newton the Broken. But my friends, I do have a bit of grim news. We have a large man-hunting pack of grizzly bears that have entered the area to try and slaughter our nobility. But as always, we must stand our ground against these furry, honey-loving SOBs, otherwise they're going to roll right over top of us, and then there'll be a bunch of bears in Rats Mountain. It just does not work. They're bears, not rats. But anyhow, we finally managed to slaughter all of the man-hunting grizzly bears. Kale and Galro were pretty badly injured during the battle though, but luckily they did survive. For their crimes against the crown and the sins against humanity and gods alike that the bears have committed, we went around and executed every single one of them with a warhammer. Then I realized the extent of Kale's injuries. Kale had a scratch in her left eye from a grizzly bear paw. Now, I'm not saying that hurts, but I know it doesn't tickle. Or maybe it does. After the bear attack, we began expanding the barn because we continue having more and more animals. And a little bit later, we finally managed to recruit the ranger that had attacked us from the Empire last episode. After an extensive recruitment process that had reformed her, she was finally ready to don the black armor of the Black Knights Guild. We had her great helm ready, but not her plate armor, so she just threw on some shabby armor that she found on the shelves in storage. And not long after recruiting her, we finally managed to also recruit Gaborka. But her armor was also not ready. Anyhow though, we had a golden meteorite fall nearby. It's a little hard to see the meteorite though, because the mech cluster not far from it had so much fog in the area you couldn't see shit. But we'll deal with them in due time. For now, I have bigger things to worry about. Really big and white, with a big horn on top. I'm talking about thrumbos. There's a bunch of thrumbos in the area, and one of our colonists is having an inspired taming. So I felt pretty good about our chances of trying to tame one. I thought to myself, this would be the perfect steed for the king to ride around. And thank God, somehow, I have no idea, I swear I have no idea how this happened, we did manage to tame it. And I'd like to give a quick shout out to Nenergy for the wonderful name of Invincible for a steed. It's not much of a steed, Nenergy, it's a thrumbo, but I hope you're happy, I love the name. However, there was something I did not love, and it was the fact that Gorar ended up catching the flu. In this day and age, with our medieval medicine, the flu is basically a death sentence, so we were very cautious about this. Unfortunately for Gorar, though, having the flu means he doesn't get to help us attack this mech cluster. Ah, darn it. Maybe next time, little buddy. Obviously, since the shield had to recharge, the intelligent thing to do, an intellectual would think, maybe we try to mortar the shit out of it. The only problem is with that, our medieval muttonheads do a lot better with catapults, and they missed basically every shot. However, we made them mad enough to try and attack us. Most of them ended up making it to the end of the murder hallway and making out to the other side and firing upon us. Thank God, though, Lagua was packing that EMP cannon he always has on him. It really turned the tide of battle. A little bit later, we brought out a catapult to start firing some rocks at the mech cluster because they still have plenty of auto turrets that could do plenty of damage to our nobility. And if you remember a moment ago, I said that our medieval muttonheads were much better with catapults than they were with mortars. Unfortunately, it appears I may have lied because they seem to be awful with both. We shot at the unstable fuel nodes that were with the mech cluster until they inevitably exploded, destroying basically all of the auto turrets with them, leaving nothing but the weather controller behind where we could blast it into oblivion. Sometime later after the mech cluster, Queen Busto had the realization that we were expanding very quickly, and we had a lot of new members, so we would expand the Great Hall of the Keep so we could add some new tables and chairs for everyone. Because God forbid even one of these colonists had the 8 without table debuff, I would lose my shit. After we expanded the keep though, we had a bunch of filthy ferals dropping in nearby to try and raid us. But instead of fighting the ferals on our own, I had the big brain idea to go and piss off the mechanoids that were with the psychic ship. That way they would fight each other and slaughter each other on the battlefield, and we wouldn't have to get our hands dirty. It was honestly quite interesting to see the Ferals take on the mechs and their strategy and whatnot. They kind of just stood there while they got shot to pieces, but some of them had some explodey sticks and they threw them right at them, and it didn't really work, and basically all of them died, and those that didn't ran away, but that's okay. I mean, let's be honest, it's the thought that counts. The thought that the Ferals could take on the mechanoids. Hey, they tried, and that's what's important. But after they were all slaughtered, we decided to try and avoid the mechanoids best we could and begin mining that golden meteorite that the gods had sent to us. All hail the gods! All hail the crown! Anyhow, King George decided to set up a catapult across the mountain from the psychic ship and start chucking big old boulders at it until we would destroy it and piss off the mechs, and you know how it goes. The Queen delivered the final blow to the ship with her rifle, and this did, in fact, really piss off the mechanoids, so they all decided to come and attack us. They started coming through the murder hallway. It was real slow. They were getting hurt a little bit. Yeah, we've seen this all before. The mechs put up a pretty good fight. They even managed to knock Galro down and then began burning our barricades with their incinerary cannons. And the last one was finally killed though, and we just began putting out the fire, and the mech cluster was dealt with, as well as the Feral raid. But that is no surprise. I've yet to see any filthy Ferals or mechanoids that could take us on. The House of Rat reigns supreme. We decided to build a nice limestone fireplace in our great hall to keep us all nice and warm. And it must have been warm enough to start a little spark between Lumi and our Black Knight Cambiar, because they were now lovers. Ooh, so spicy. Now, in less spicy news though, we had a mechanical leg that we had made, and Kale had a stump where her right leg used to be that was cut off during battle. I thought the two would go perfect together, so we took that right leg, the mechanical leg I mean, and put it on her right leg, and now she could walk again after the anesthesia wears off, that is. But we were not just only creating artificial limbs, we were also creating armor. I started working on a massive set of plasteel armor for one of our animals. Can you take a guess? Guess who it might be? The name will make sense after you see. Could it be the King's Steed? Ah, 'tis he. All right, I'm done rhyming with this stuff. It's the Thrumbo. It's invincible. We're going to give him some massive plasteel armor to truly reinforce the fact that he is invincible. A massive Thrumbo carrying our king around that is wearing a massive set of plasteel armor wrapped all around it. I personally believe that that is the definition of invincible. To truly put this armor to the test on our Thrumbo, I sent out a massive raiding party. It was everyone except for Newton, because obviously Newton can't walk, and Galro to take care of Newton. I decided to send them to a supply cache that the Empire of the planet had been holding for quite some time, and we were going to raid them and find any goodies they had. Shortly after arriving, the shuttle that the Empire had there seen who was coming, and it ran off to flee. The others pissed their pants as we trotted on towards them with our rifles firmly gripped and just ready to murder everyone. These fools knew nothing of what was to come. We began slaughtering every single one of them, and they all lay there in the puddle of their little acid acidifier things, and Shark even took one on with his hammer and started bashing his brains out. Unfortunately, Shark was shot to the ground shortly after that, but he claimed his victory. The Empire's Rangers attempted to flee the supply cache, and we would not allow this to happen, though. We began opening fire on all the people trying to run away, and we slaughtered them just as we had slaughtered their other brethren, and we prepared to go around the camp and begin looting any goodies that they had here. Weapons, armor, anything. We found a few interesting things, like plasma swords for our royalty and nobility to carry. But on the way home, I decided that we should probably make a little bit of a pit stop at an ancient complex nearby to see if there was anything from Ye Olde World that may be left there we could use. So naturally, our royalty, nobility, and our Black Knights Guild all made their way for the ancient complex, and Queen Busto attempted to go through the first door. Immediately after entering, a fuel node exploded, and we decided to go to the other section. You know, the section of the building that wasn't already on fire and going to be about 100,000,000 degrees on the inside that would melt our Thrumbo's armor right onto its skin. I think you get the gist. King George led us into the other side of the building, and we found this very strange ancient chair that had wheels on it. It had a depiction of somebody with a broken back or spine or something of that sort sitting in it. I wonder if this could be useful. We decided to pick it up and take it along back home with us. We cracked open a hole on the eastern side of the complex to air out any flames or anything that may happen so we don't all burn to death. We found one scyther, and apparently there was a large infestation of insectoids. They weren't really hostile towards us though, so we didn't really bother fighting with them. We ended up cracking open the southern part of the ancient complex, and we found a centipede taking a little nap in there while we tiptoed around so that we wouldn't wake him up. That way we could try and open up the other doors, and then, eventually we'll kill him, but we'll let him enjoy his nap for now. As George went snooping around the complex to look for any ancient comms consoles and crates, which he did end up finding, by the way, a few of them, there wasn't really anything too interesting in them, some medicine and things like that. We all stood, though, out in the hall with the centipede, and just in case he woke up from his little snooze, that way we could bombard him with bullets. After the centipede woke up, though, and we kicked the shit out of it like the tin can it is, we then moved on to the scyther, who was also having his little snooze, and we started pelting him with bullets, and then eventually beat the shit out of him with our melee weapons. He died, they all died, and then we made the long trek home, and finally we had arrived home after a long, treacherous journey of raiding and camp. I'm not gonna lie, we had a good time. We murdered everyone we came across, and we took everything from them, so it wasn't that treacherous for us, I'll be honest. We decided to hold a bit of a ceremony in the throne room with the odd device, the chair with wheels that we have found in the ancient complex. We brought Newton into the room, and we decided that we would give it a shot and we would see if this ancient technology could fix Newton's legs. After administering the device to Newton, Newton was so excited he rolled right down out of the room, out of the throne room, into the hallway, and we had to get him to come back in. It had worked, and we were all extremely excited. Thanks to this ancient technology we found, Newton was born again. He could somewhat walk, well, he couldn't walk, but he could roll around in this chair, which is just as damn good as having legs. It was wonderful, and I was so excited that we even let him go out on a hunt on his own out in the snow. I don't know if that was the best idea, but we let him do it. He did, however, manage on the hunt to kill an alpaca and bring it all the way back on his own in his wheelchair, which was very impressive. He's quite the stout lad. Now, back in the keep, though, in our warehouse, we had 2 plasma swords to administer to somebody, to give to them, essentially, and I thought there would be no better choice to start giving plasma swords to our king and queen. Shark and the Black Knights Guild, they all have their beautiful war hammers. Some of our other nobility could use some plasma swords and whatnot, but we'll collect those as we go. Speaking of Shark, however, though, he entered the prison and we had our 2 Imperial Rangers in there. He decided to go ahead and start stripping them of their belongings and their dignity, as we always do, to begin the recruitment process. During this time, we were also mining out another section of our crypt, just in case. I want the dead to have a very respectful room and large room to rest in for the rest of their, well, not lives, but you know what I mean. Now we ended up having a Imperial raid, though. The Empire was very upset that we have raided their little weapons cache and items and goodies from that little outpost that they had. So they decided to send out 2 large groups of raiding parties to try and murder us. They had many, many rangers among their ranks, as well as many, many people in cataphract power armor. It wouldn't save them, though, as we had the power of the gods, and the House of Rat will stand mighty. And also we had some catapults to fling big old rocks at them and crush them. As the fools began making their way through our murder hallway, we began throwing those big chunks of limestone and granite and everything, trying to hit them right in the top of their heads and get as many of them as possible to murder them. They were coming down that murder hallway, though, packed tight as sardines in a can. And I'll be the first to tell you, I can't stand sardines. They're disgusting! So, I'm going to kill all these filthy Imperials, and we're going to reap what they have brought with them and start using their weaponry. You get the gist, you know how it is. We're going to conquer these fools. Only one of the fools made it to the end of the murder hallway, and then the others realized that their ranks were so depleted that they had better just run away. But we couldn't let that happen, so we cracked open the doors in the murder hallway and let some of them try to come out where we could slaughter them like the filthy animals that they were. We ended up having one prisoner from this raid who wasn't totally dog shit. The others really were not worth keeping. There was a pyromaniac with some okay skills, and the rest of them, we could just let them die and bleed out there in our caltrops, to be honest, but one of them was pretty useful. More importantly, we ended up having quite a few mono swords and SMGs and things like that from the raid that would be very useful while we're continuing to build our army. Now, something I do want to mention in this episode is a new mod that we've added. We've added the mod known as Powerful Faction Bases. Now, I was going to present that mod in this episode with a raid, but I decided to kind of hold off on that. I'm going to play around with it a little more and see what kind of bases we can get out of it, what size bases and stuff, because I don't just want to go for the largest base right away, because we will get totally wrecked. There will be no more House of Rat. We'll get absolutely murdered. So I just want to mention that we have added that, though, and that was suggested to us by our viewer, Combater. I apologize, my friend. I have totally slaughtered and butchered your name, but thank you for the suggestion. It's going to be wonderful, especially when we take on the Empire. I would love the idea of massive bases and many, many pawns to try and recruit into our Black Knights Guild. I'm also considering, and let me know what you guys think about this, you know, we have Shark as our leader for the Black Knights Guild. I'm also thinking of maybe having Lagua having kind of his own little platoon of, you know, like a guild or something. There's different types of armors and things like that through other mods and whatnot we could try. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. It'd be very much appreciated. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. You're all absolutely wonderful, and I love you very much. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.